Welcome to the Do Hard Things Today podcast, where fitness and life intersect. Today we're going to be starting a series on running, and the running series, we're going to start with marathon, our first segment on marathon training, and this will probably take 2 or 3 segments to complete the whole marathon series, because there's so many things that go into marathon training. But before we get into that and I introduce you to the guest we've got here on the podcast, I just want to remind you to go to iTunes. If you could subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review. If you could write a review, it really helps move up the search engine when people are searching for a running podcast, fitness podcast, those kind of things. So if we're bringing any value to your life, make sure to do that. You can find us on Facebook, the Do Hard Things Today. We've got a nutrition page. You can just search that up, as well as dohardthingstoday.com. You can find all of our resources there. But we wanted to start the running series with marathon training. Now, marathon training is, for some people, and I don't necessarily agree with this, because I think any goal you set is a good goal, whether it's 5K, 10K, half, whatever it may be. But for many people, the marathon is considered the pinnacle of running. There's obviously ultra races and other things out there that are longer, but for many people, that 26.2 number just means something different. I know the first time I finished my first marathon, it was a big deal. When I crossed that finish line, I was like, man, I did something that less than 1% of the population has done, and that number is graduate. I mean, as many people are running, that percentage is shrinking, actually. So it is a big deal to train for 26.2 miles. So what we wanted to do today as we start this, and let me tell you what we're going to cover in this podcast, is basically how do you get started? How do you keep yourself from getting injury-free? And is running a marathon for you even possible? So we have brought in 3 of ladies that are actually training for a marathon right now. They have been involved in marathons before, but they're training for the Chicago Marathon, and they're a part of the running groups we have here. Again, we're in the upstate of South Carolina, and so we have Lisa Lindsay, Tony Clement, and Jill Morris with us. Say hello, ladies.
Hey.
Hello.
All right, they're all here, and we're going to talk to them a little bit about, okay, how did their journey to marathon training begin? Some of the things they've done right, some of the things they've done wrong, and I want to give you some tips. And we've got a bunch of questions that you guys have submitted through our Facebook page, as well as through our email on marathon training. So, ladies, obviously I told you you're doing the Chicago Marathon, which that's coming up, I think, October 13th. So you guys, we're recording this on July 14th. So you're 90 days out, roughly a little bit over 90 days, but it's basically 3 months out from that training. So how did you guys get started towards this goal of marathon training? Let's go back to the very first marathon that you did. How did you get started in marathon training? Any of you can jump in.
Well, I got started because I talked to Jill, who ran her first marathon in remembrance of her mom. Her mom had passed away, and she said, I want to run a marathon around my mom's age. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. And then I kind of thought back and was thinking, and I realized, oh my goodness, my father was my age, within 6 months to a year from when I talked to Jill. And I thought, you know what, that's something awesome to remember a parent by and to show your family, I'm healthy, I'm strong. And so I told Jill, hey, and around March of 2019 will be when my dad would have been the same age I am right now when he passed away. And that's something I want to do. And so they kind of had Jill and Lisa, Reggie, all kind of helped me and geared me up and helped me through the runs and everything else to reach my goal of running my first marathon.
And Tony, that is something that many people, when we talk about that number being special, it is, people run races for all kind of different reasons, but many times people make the decision to plunge into the marathon for a specific reason. You mentioned Jill running in memory of her mom, and doing these different things. I mean, it is something that is, for many people, it is the lifetime achievement that they, throw the stuff out professionally and family-wise, but it is their personal lifetime achievement. And so I would encourage you out there, if you're considering doing something like this to really kind of reflect on, is there something out there that this can help me overcome, or that I can do this for, and then decide. Then deciding if you're going to do this. So when you ladies decided to do this, okay, and you decided we're going to do this marathon, going to go after it and try to really train hard. What were some of the first things you had to do to be able to start putting yourself in a position to where you're going to be successful in your goal?
Well, first of all, we had to have a plan. We had to build on our miles. We had to start off slow and then build our endurance up so we could feel comfortable. We had to have a nutrition guideline so we'll know when to fuel. And we just had to stick to the goal no matter what the weather was, no matter if we didn't feel like running, we stuck to our plan the whole time.
Yeah, and that's Lisa Lindsay. And, the thing is, people say a lot, I could never run a marathon. And I tell people, don't ever underestimate and don't overestimate a marathon. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Okay, don't underestimate it, because it is a very tough thing. It is a grind training for a marathon, and then 26.2 miles is a long way. It is. We'll talk about this in a second, but it's not just saying I've done a half marathon, so it'll just be twice as hard. No, I think it's about 4 or 5 times as hard, because you get into those over 13 miles, you're getting into deep water. But on the same hand, don't overestimate how hard it is. The hard part is the training. And it is, you mentioned a few things: being consistent, having a plan, following the plan, just doing, we talk about the do hard things today, but just doing the hard things daily. If you just pile just days and days and days of just deciding to do the hard things, not skipping workouts, sticking to your nutrition, those kind of things, you will absolutely make it to your goal. Throwing the unknown things out, you will make it to your goal if you do those things. And I think that's the most important thing about deciding that you're going to do a marathon, is deciding that, okay, I'm going to make the daily commitment to be able to do these things. The other thing you mentioned that I want to hit on is, you said slowing down. Now, what do you mean by, why did you have to slow down?
Well, we're so used to running races, just flying out the hatchet like a 5K or 10K. You can't do that on a marathon. You got to take it step by step, and you gradually increase as you go, so you won't hit the wall. And you got to know your nutrition, so you slow down so you can figure out what works for you best.
How many times in life have we used the phrase to not talk about running races, but just other things in life generally? We said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And what that means and why we use that is, a marathon is a process. When you're standing at the start line of a marathon, it is, you're looking at anywhere from, if you take elites, they're running it in a little bit over 2 hours, but for most of us, it's going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. You're going to be out on a course pounding the pavement. And so it is a process, and you do have to slow down, and that is the hardest thing. And for many people, it's why they won't even tackle the marathon, is because they don't want to slow down. And like I said before, that is fine. There are people out there that are elite 5Kers. They enjoy the 10K. The most popular race is the half marathon. That's a good distance that you can go out and really push on. But if you make the decision to go into marathon training, you're going to have to slow down. That zone 2 training we talk about, which is just those long, slow runs where you're just building that aerobic base. That's so important and crucial to just being successful for the long haul. Let's talk about strength training, core training. How has that been a part of you guys and what you're doing?
Oh, it's been great. I don't like it. I don't think any of us like it. It's kind of it's tough because we get up, we do boot camp, and then we run the next day training. So, but it's making us stronger, and I think it's making us it's building our endurance too, because we're stronger.
So specifically, how is it? We talk about getting stronger. How is it making you a stronger runner, though?
Because we do sprinting. We do all kinds of things. We push sleds, we do stairs. It's building muscle in our legs, our upper body strength, everything. So
yeah, and when you talk about getting into those deep miles, the further you go, the longer you run, the more your body wants to start. A lot of people, they will lean at the hips. They'll start leaning forward the longer they run. And if you keep that core strong, you keep your lower back strong, that prevents you from doing that. These many running injuries are just from overuse and having these muscle imbalances. And if you're doing the things, you're doing squats and lunges and other things to keep your body strong, keep those muscles that are around those running muscles strong, it just does so much for you. And for a lot of you that are listening to this, that is going to be something that you don't want to do because you think about the time commitment to it. But I'm just telling you, you can't not do that.
Well, I've done marathons. I've done marathons. I've done them without boot camp or training, and then I've done them with boot camp and doing HIIT workouts and things. And I can tell you, I've gotten injured on every one that I haven't done the workouts.
Well, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask you guys is, how do you balance these long miles? And some of the questions we got through our Facebook group was, how do you balance these long miles and keep yourself injury free?
Slow down, do a lot of zone 2 running. Not every run has to be full on as fast as you can go. We do some weeks only zone 2 running, and then some weeks probably once a month, we do a quick race pace to see kind of how we're doing and feel our bodies out a little bit. But there's no point in going all out every run.
And we stretch. We talk a lot, but we spend probably about at least 10 to 15 minutes kind of stretching out after each run. We stretch really good after our boot camps or, our workouts.
Have you seen benefits from that yet?
Absolutely.
I have, and I want to add something too. When you warm up and cool down, it makes a difference. And also on your rest days, you actually rest. Yeah. You don't go out doing extra stuff because you really hadn't rested.
Well, here's the thing with runners, and we talk about zone 2 training and the speed training, is I would say 90%, I'd say 95% of runners, they're zone 2, easy effort runs on their plans. They run too hard, and on their hard days, they don't run hard enough. And I think you can give about one truly, if you're truly working hard, you can give about one of those efforts a week running, and the rest of them need to be lower heart rate. You're just building that aerobic base, and then but when it comes time to work hard, you need to work. I call them hurt house workout, where it's supposed to hurt. You're supposed to be miserable. You're supposed to hate it. You're supposed to all those things, and then on the rest of the time, your body, you're just building those aerobic miles, and then on your days off, you take the days off. But then that stretching. And I know y'all have struggled with buying into that and doing just as everybody does, because it is, you want to get all the miles in, and you just I don't have 15 minutes to stretch. And, then the next day goes by and you don't stretch, and the next day, and the next thing you know, you're just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the deeper you get into training, the more important that it is. So you all were, and again, we're talking about beginner marathoners here. We'll have another podcast on, performing in the marathons and those kind of things. But, all of you at one point were beginners, and you looked and you said, I'm going to do a marathon. I'm going to take this challenge on. I'm going to bite this off. What would you say to those people out there that are thinking about dipping their toes in the marathon deep waters?
I would say, join a friend or join a group. They give great accountability. They're fun to run with. You're not running alone. It's a lot of miles, so it's nice to have people out there running with you. And I would just plan to train with those people because it makes it a lot more fun.
And I would also say, go ahead and register. If you register for something, then you say, hey, I got 18, 20 weeks to do it. You have more of a realistic goal. When you don't register, you're just out there aimlessly running, and you don't feel like you don't have a purpose right now. Right.
Yeah, and one of the podcasts we in the 5 for Friday podcast on running, it was that very thing of set a goal. Just set a goal. And it's like right now, okay, you guys, I mean, you're 3 months away from what you're doing, and what that does is it's kind of a kick in the pants when you need it. Of I've got 3 months. I better. Will it hurt to skip this workout? Well, yeah, it will. It will. You can never get it back. You can never go back and make that workout up. But let me say this as well. If you do skip a workout, and let's just be honest, everybody in time is going to skip a workout, and your only plan, do not go and try to make that up. Okay, that workout is gone. It is. You're never going to get it back. You can't. Well, I'm just going to add on more miles. No, you follow your plan. Whatever plan that you're on, follow it. Don't go back and try to add on things. Just learn from it. Why did I miss the workout, and then move on from there. All right, little Q&A. Got some questions from our Facebook group and have come in through email. I'm going to read these questions and I'll comment, but I want you guys to jump in and talk about some of these. One of them coming from Keith sent this in to us, is hitting the wall real, and how to push through the uncomfortable.
Oh, it's so real.
Very
so
real.
So for those people listening that have not run a marathon before, what is this wall that we're talking about?
Well, I hit it at 18 and 19 in the marathon, and I looked at Jill and I said, just go. Leave me and go. I just want to walk. I don't want to run anymore. I can walk the next 8 miles into the finish line. I'm done. I don't want to do this. I had nothing left in me. And she would get a little bit further ahead of me, and I'd have to kind of run a little faster to kind of catch up with her, and she'd slow down, and then she'd get up further away from me, and that lasted about a mile to a mile and a half. Then I finally, something in me just kind of turned over, and I finally got my energy back, my levels back. My legs weren't hurting as much. They felt like they were lead at 18 to 19. And then
mile 23 came up, and I bonked out and hit the wall. And it feels like it just feels like you can't go. Your legs are so heavy. It's really, you think it's all mental, and I think it is a lot of it, but a lot of it probably has to do with fueling. But you just hit it, and when you hit it, you're just down. So you either have to walk it or just move as slow as you can to get to the finish line.
And I think fueling is key. And in a later podcast, we'll talk about, get into greater detail about fueling in the marathon. But it is, when you get behind in any kind of endurance event, you cannot catch up. Physiologically, you cannot catch up. You can't uptake calories and water fast enough to fill a deficit that you've created, where either you've got to stay ahead of it, you've got to be prepared as you go into the race, you've got to have a plan. Hal Morris talked about, he's got a beeper on his phone, on his watch, that beeps and tells him when he's got to drink, got to eat. And so you've got to do that. But that wall is real. Now, I would argue, again, if you are fueling properly, in any marathon I've ever been in, I have hit the wall. But I argue that it is more a mental wall than a physical wall. That it is that thing that where you start doubting yourself. Why am I doing this? I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to be able to get. Your mind starts saying all these things. And y'all have heard me say this in boot camp before. You got to, don't let your mind tell you things about yourself that aren't true. And your mind is trying to, I think it's one of the ways God just made us, of your mind's trying to protect you from doing this crazy thing you're doing. So it's saying, no, slow down. Your body will do it. You just got to convince your mind, and you got to push through. And he uses the word, the uncomfortable. I promise you, on a 26.2 miles course, you're gonna be uncomfortable, and you just got to suck it up and move through. Prashant asked the question of, what is the purpose of Zone 2 training, and how essential is it? Gosh, we talk about Zone 2 training all the time, but it is.
We don't like it.
Yeah, it is.
I like it.
Yeah, Tony likes the Zone 2
because
training.
I'm walking.
Well, do you ladies think it's important?
Yes, it is.
Yes, definitely.
It's going to it keeps your heart rate down, and it shows you how to endure. So you're out there longer, but you're still running. You may have to walk some. You do what it takes, but to keep that heart rate down.
Yeah, and the thing about Zone 2 training, when you start doing it, if you're disciplined on it, you're going to slow down, and you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to think, wow, I'm just so slow. I've got to. If you'll stay disciplined at it, what'll happen is that Zone 2, your pace will start to come down, and you'll be able to go out and run at a pace that used to be what you thought was your Zone 3 and pace, but you'll now be doing that at Zone 2 when you're just building that endurance, that base. We got another question of this comes from Steve. When doing long runs, how many should be at a slower pace versus race pace? I touched on that a second ago. I think you can really do one hard run per week. And hard runs I define as, like speed work, track work, hill work, those kind of things, even like tempo runs or when you're doing race pace runs. I think, people will disagree, maybe you need to try and experiment, but I think one a week is about all your body can handle. You guys have any feedback on that?
No, I think that's all that's all we can handle.
Yeah. What ends up happening is if you do too many hard runs, it catches up with you. And you've always got to think about your workouts as they're not just a moment in time. They are a part of a bigger plan. They are preparing you for longer and harder efforts. And, if you go harder, then your body can't recover. And then your body it will force you to, then you won't be able to perform like you want to in your hard runs. And this one came, from Jill on her Facebook page. Is it really possible to increase your pace and speed when training for endurance events like a marathon? Can you? Can you get faster while you're training for this? What are your goals for Chicago?
My goal is 4 hours and 45 minutes.
Mine's 4:30ish.
Mine's 4:30.
Okay, so everybody's going for 4:30.
I'm one who I like to set my goals to something reachable because I feel, and this is just me personally, if I don't reach that goal, I will be defeated beyond belief. So, for example, Saturday's 10-mile run, I had it in my head that a 10-minute mile would be great, an overall 10-minute mile. Perfect. Well, I started off and I was way below that, and I just kept going, and I did a 9:30 average pace, mile.
Yeah,
so I was ecstatic. Now, if I would have done a 10:20, I would have beat myself up for weeks. So I've learned, as me personally, my goal needs to be achievable without killing myself.
You'll do a 4:15.
And be happy with my performance. If I say 4:30 personally to me and I don't get 4:30, then it would shut me down. So, and I don't want to be shut down. I want to keep going.
And that is, you kind of got to decide, and that's one of the questions we got that goes right into this. There's a psychology to training for a marathon, and a question we got on the page was, in marathon training, do you have to run 26.2 miles in training before you run the marathon? And I actually responded back on the Facebook page with that's subjective, and it's one of the most hotly debated questions and answers you'll get about marathon training is that question. And I think in my mind it's determined by the individual's confidence level and anxiety about the race. And what I mean by that is if they're feeling like, I just don't know if I can make it 26 miles. I'm feeling strong, my training's going well, all these things but I just don't know if I can get that far. I would argue for that person, it would be important to get a 26 miler in. Very, very slow. Why most people would say in training plans that 20 miles is adequate, because you just got to understand, when you get up above 13, 14, 15 miles, the risk of injury just goes up. It just goes up because you're tired. When you get tired, your form starts to go. All those things can happen. So I don't think it is mandatory. And if you're feeling confident and you're feeling strong And for some people, it is, I don't want to run 26 miles until that marathon because that's going to be my crowning achievement. But I think you've got to, if you're feeling anxious about it and it's going to give you the confidence you need to be able to go out and do it, I would argue that doing a 26 miler in training would be something that would be good for you. Not mandatory, but good for you.
And I'll go with that is never having done a marathon, and we are following our plan. And I'm not throwing you under the bus, Lisa, but Lisa's like, if we hit 22, 23, we can do it. And I thought, nope, if I've never ran 26, I'll never run 26 in a marathon. And so we added a few miles onto one of our longer runs to get past that 26 mark, because I know I had anxiety of never running a marathon before. Jill had run one before. But I knew if I had never run 26 miles, I was going to probably break down in the marathon and be like, nope, can't do it. Never done it before. So to me, as you said, just having that mental confidence of, yes, my body can do this. It can go 26, 27, miles and be okay starting the race without anxiety of, can I really do this?
And that is important because any marathon you go to, and I love at the start line of a marathon, and I do the Disney ones, and there's been 25,000 people there before at this, and most races are not like that. But you just look around, and at the beginning of the race, at the start line, and there's so many different stories there. But you can tell. I mean, you can literally tell the people that are so anxious about, can I do this? Can I? And if that is something, and if all that anxiety builds up, it can really affect your race day, and can cause you to wonder if, do I have what it takes? Can I make it? So it is, it is something that I believe if you're anxious about it, get that 26 miler in. That's behind you. Now it's okay. I'm going to go out and I'm going to race this thing. Now, Janine asked the question, jokingly, am I going to die? But that question is asking a lot of different ways. I think she's joking. Maybe she's joking. But that is a question. Is this going to kill me? Well, if you're going from the couch and you go out and run and decide you're going to run 26 miles tomorrow, it's probably going to kill you. But again, don't overestimate what a marathon is. I would argue that any well-bodied person that does not have physical limitations can absolutely do a marathon. I'm not telling you need to go do a marathon, but if it's something that you decided you wanted to do, I believe every able-bodied person could do it if they decided to put the training in. It's just a matter of deciding, am I going to put the training in? You get as many people at the end of marathons that finish it and say, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because they've trained. Now, also you get the people that are like, I'll never do that again because it killed me. Well, you know why they're saying that? Because they didn't train. They didn't put the training in, and they ended up limping in. Angel asked this question. Angel, one of our boot campers, she said, is it possible to run and not feel like I'm going to die? It hurts, and I have a hard time controlling my breathing. Does that get better? We know what the answer is. What's the answer to that? Yes, and what does she need to be doing?
Zone 2.
That's it. And I see Angel, if you're listening, I see you at boot camp when you're running, and you're running too hard, and I get it. You're like, I'm just going to push through, but backing off, slowing down. And I'll tell you what always happens with us, our egos get in the way, and we want to go a little bit faster. Slow down, build that cardio base, and what's going to and what happens with all of this is as you do these things, you get in better and better shape. We lose a little bit of that weight. We're not carrying it around as much, and we'll get faster. And then Linda, this will be our final one. How long to realistically plan to go from a half marathon to a full without pushing too fast for injury and planning for possible setbacks? This is a good one, and I think Lisa wants to speak to this. What Linda asked there, and again, her second part of this was without pushing too fast for injury. That is the biggest thing about marathon training is you need to be on a plan that keeps you and does the best possible thing it can to prevent you from getting injured. We said it at the beginning of the podcast. Half marathons and full marathons. Well, it's just double the distance. So that's all it is. No, it's more than that. You got to think, go out and run a half marathon, and then when you get done with that, now another half marathon starts. And so I would argue it's about 4 times as hard to do a full marathon as it is a half marathon, just from all the things that you take. So I'm going to let you guys take a shot at this first. What if you can comfortably run a half marathon? And again, this is not, I limped to the finish line and I felt like I was going to die because I was not trained. Let's assume that the person was trained up enough to be able to go and comfortably complete a half marathon. How long do you think they should have to train to be able to do a full?
I think if they can comfortably do a half marathon, at least 18 weeks. Give yourself plenty of time, because you never know. Like you said, you may have to skip some workouts. You don't know what's going to happen. You could get sick. You got to give yourself at least 18 weeks of full training.
And I think you talk about build phases and plans and that kind of thing. When you go from 13 up, making it all the way up to 26 miles, again, you're going to, as these long runs start to increase, you've got to give your body time to recover. Like you go out and do 13 miles. I'm a big believer in you go every other week on these longer runs, and then you back it down, you do some different things, but you're going to slowly build up. And, 18 weeks, that's 4.5 months. I think that's a good amount of time. Don't just jump into it. Don't jump into the marathon party because you feel like that's just the next step. And hey, there's a marathon in a month. I've done a half marathon. I'll be able to make it through. You don't want to do that. Tony, do you want to say something about that?
Well, and the other thing with that too is if you've only run one half, make sure you do, like Lisa said, definitely have the 18 or 20 weeks to go to a marathon. Now, if you've done several halves within a year and you're, feeling good, you could even do it in 16 weeks or 15 if you've been doing plenty of half marathons and getting your body accustomed to that 13 miles and on. But if you've only run one half or two halves, definitely you need to give your body time to adjust to the longer miles, and just take it slow. Don't rush, because as you said, rushing, it's going to give you your injuries, and you're not doing a marathon to get injured. So you're doing it to better yourself. So if you're going to better yourself, give your body time to get the miles in, recover.
Yeah, and I think we can sum that up by saying, build your base, build that base up. You can't rush a marathon. You just can't do it. It is, and I've told people this before, you go out and run a marathon, you can't hide your lack of training. It's going to come out. It just exposes you on the course. If you're not trained and you haven't followed a plan and done the things it takes, it's going to expose you, and you'll get out there and it will be the most miserable thing in your life. Or you can go in, you can finish that 26.2 and think, I just did something that hardly anybody else has done.
Let's do it again.
And,
let's do it.
And really, hey, and you say that word, I'm a marathoner now, and I'm gonna do it again, and then you'll be confident that second time to go out and say, okay, well now let's get some time goals. And I would encourage people that if you're going to do your first marathon, unless you have such a strong athletic and running base that you just feel very, very confident, I would not make any crazy time goals for the first one. I would look at that and say, all right, number one is finishing this, getting through training uninjured, and then letting my training kind of take me to what that number is. And then like I said, after you finish that first one, then you start looking at, okay, I want to set some goals. I want to do this again and set some more aggressive goals. So anything you guys would say to those people there are people listening to this right now, I promise you, that are right on that edge of, okay, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm scared. I want to, but I just don't know. What would you say to them?
I would say go ahead and register for what you want. Look out way ahead. Get you a calendar. Get organized. Figure out what I need to run for this week and the next. You have to have a plan, and you got to believe you can do it. every time I do something, I think I didn't come this far to come this far. That's what you have to tell yourself mentally to make it through. But physically, just about everybody can do it. They just have to have a plan and mentally be ready.
And grab a friend. I mean, join a group. I mean, that makes it more fun, too.
I would never. I just, back to kind of the mental thing is, I don't like to run alone. I usually won't run alone. I had a 10-mile zone 2 the other day, and I sucked my husband into doing 6 with me at least, so I wasn't by myself. I hate running alone, and I get anxiety almost when I'm running alone just because I want to focus more on my running, and I can't because I'm kind of always looking, around. So without my running partners and the accountability with them, I wouldn't have done it. So to me, that was a huge thing, of them saying, let's go to the Swamp Rabbit. We got 23 miles. And I'm like, nope, I have a head cold. And they're like, let's go out here. And I gave my head cold to another running partner, but you're welcome. But without the accountability and my friends, I wouldn't have made it as far as I did.
True story. She had a cold. It was freezing rain that day. It wasn't just rain. It was freezing rain that day. And I said, Tony, let's go.
So pops my ibuprofen and move on out the door. So.
And that's it. And it really is. Go back to that first thing we said. Don't overestimate and don't underestimate marathon training. It is a hard thing to do daily. But when it comes race day, if you've trained, you're going to be shocked at how easy the race is because you've put in all of that effort, all of that time. You've done the hard things daily. And now you come to race day and tell people it's like the dessert. You're there and you're there to take what's yours at that point. And if you're standing tell people with any kind of training for any kind of race, what you want to be able to say is when you're standing at the start line, I've done everything possible to have myself ready to reach my goal. And if I step in a hole and sprain my ankle and can't make it, so be it. But I've done everything I can do. And I think. Look forward to you ladies. We'll have you on again to do another segment on marathon training. We'll start talking about some goals and some fueling strategies and other things. But we really just wanted to kind of cut through the anxiety levels of those people out there that are considering marathon training and how to take part in it. So we appreciate you guys coming in. Keep up your training. 3 months to go for Chicago. So I'm sure you guys will realize your goals, even if you bring yours down to 4:30, which you probably should be. But if you just continue to do the hard things daily, then good things are gonna happen for you. And as always, we appreciate Hal Morris is over there on the board. He's the wizard that makes all of these things happen for us. And ladies, we appreciate you being on. And just to remind you, go to dohardthingstoday.com. You can find resources there. As well as our Facebook page, the Do Hard Things Today, the nutrition, fitness, but we have different tips. Everything's free there. And if you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe. You can actually go on there. You can share it as well with your friends that may enjoy reading this. But if you could write us a review, that really helps us be able to move up in the rankings where other people can find us and be a part of this community. So for everyone here, signing off with the Do Hard Things Today podcast where fitness and life intersect.